He owns and operates the Pack-A-Day podcast that airs 365 days a year with over 12 million views on YouTube. A new adventure begins. It's time for the Pack-A-Day radio show with Andy Herman on 1250 AM and 105.7 FM The Fan, powered by the Potawatomi Sportsbook and on the free Odyssey app.
I don't know until he gets back here and see how he feels. I mean, we'll see. Obviously, he'll be out this week. And then I would put it highly unlikely that he plays for Seattle. As far as the practice is concerned, I can't tell you that at this moment.
Good morning, Packers Nation. Happy Wednesday. Welcome into the Pack-A-Day radio show. We are live from the 1250 AM and 105.7 FM The Fan Studios, powered by the Potawatomi Sportsbook. My name is Andy Herman. Appreciate you guys joining us today, whether it be on the radio waves, over on YouTube, or however you might be checking us out, maybe the free Odyssey app. We have got Jacob Westendorf joining us today. You can find him, of course, Packers on SI, Pack-A-Day podcast, and a variety of other places as well. He'll be joining us at 8:20 a.m. this morning. Would also love for you to join the show, Nicolay Law Fan Talk and text line 414-677-1250. Again, 414-677-1250. You can call us, you can text us, or you can also comment over on YouTube, and we can get to your questions throughout the course of today's show. Of course, the major topic, as we heard there, courtesy of the Green Bay Packers from Matt LaFleur and earlier from Brian Gutekunst yesterday, was that Jordan Love had a little procedure done. And Tommy Warts, if I would have told you yesterday when we were on air that the following phrase with Jordan was Jordan Love, torn ligament, surgery, had those words in it, I would have been pretty freaked out for a long time until we heard from, Brian Gutekunst and Matt LaFleur in that morning, and probably would have expected the absolute worst. Even taking it a step further, if you would have said Jordan Love, torn ligament, thumb, I would have said, oh my God, we've got a 50-50 chance that this thing is catastrophic. But thankfully, deep exhales, the Jordan Love injury is on his left thumb. It's apparently relatively minor when all things are considered when it comes to surgery. And he is going to be back sooner rather than later, potentially as next week, and is not expected to miss any regular season time. That was like frightening. Just even how Brian Gutekunst is like, Jordan Love had a small procedure, just end it now. I don't even want to know. And then thankfully we got out the other side of it, and for the most part, everything seems okay.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Andy. I'm using just my right hand today because my left hand hurts because I got injured just like everyone else did on the Green Bay Packers yesterday as well.
It was insane. We'll talk about some of the injuries that took place during the course of practice. I'm hoping most of those are relatively minor / much ado about nothing as well. But man, I mean, you talk about your star quarterback, your franchise guy, and having to go and have surgery. There's two things now that we have to kind of watch with this. And again, it sounds like everything is going to be okay. He hit his thumb on a helmet when he got sacked in that preseason game on that final play, which is, again, going to just raise the debate of whether or not players should or should not play in the preseason. I say every single time, I think you're darned if you do, darned if you don't. If you play all your guys in preseason and somebody gets hurt, and if it's something significant, the coach just says, why is it even in there? It's a meaningless game. Why are you doing this? If you don't play anybody and you lose the week one, or you lose your first couple games to Detroit and Washington, well, should have played guys in preseason, clearly weren't prepared. What were you doing? It's just one of those things where if you play guys, you just got to pray they don't get hurt. And if you don't play guys, you just got to pray you start off strong on the season, because otherwise you're going to get called out for it either way. So I don't necessarily have a great pulse on what you should do in these situations. I do think even with your quarterback, it probably is even more focused on trying to keep him healthy. But again, I don't know that there's a right or wrong answer. In this case, he does get injured in the preseason game. He's going to be out probably until next week is what the prognosis and diagnosis was. We'll get to Pro Football Doc on his evaluation here in just a moment. But I think there's two things that we have to watch moving forward. One is, when is that actual return time? Meaning, if it is in fact like next Wednesday, let's say next Wednesday he's back by, it's a little over a week from the initial injury, right? If he's back by next Wednesday, he missed yesterday's practice, which not a huge deal. Today is an off day. He would miss tomorrow's joint practice, which is a huge bummer. There's like a walkthrough, I think, on Friday. No big deal. Saturday, he wasn't going to play in the preseason game anyway. Sunday's an off day. Monday, there's not a training camp scheduled, but that might be one of those that's open to the media. We don't know yet. So maybe there's that. And then Tuesday, there is a training camp open. He would miss 4, maybe 3 practices by being out from this if he's back next Wednesday. And then probably the preseason, not probably, Matt LaFleur, as we heard earlier, said he's not going to play in that preseason game either. So 3 to 4 practices and a preseason game is what he might miss out of this. If that's what it ends up being, that it's really not a huge deal at all. If all of a sudden it goes, kind of past next week, he's not able to do the joint practices next week with Seattle, and it kind of goes into the following week in a couple weeks, and it gives you like a week and a half into that Lions game, probably still relatively, innocuous, not that huge of a deal. But it is definitely something that as it gets closer and closer to that Detroit game, you want everyone on the same page, in rhythm, have the timing. You don't want any sort of rust or coming off of injury right away, right before Detroit. And then 4 days later, Washington coming to town in another huge game. So I think that's number one, is just when is that actual timeline and when does he actually get back? And then the second thing is when he is back, there's not really any throwing, running, anything like that I'm concerned about. It's on his left hand. The only thing that I have some concern about is, can he take snaps under center? If, as he hands under center and the ball's getting there, if that's going to consistently affect that thumb throughout the course of the year to the point where, he's not able to take snaps under center, or it severely limits the amount of snaps he can take under center, then you get into this situation where you have to do a lot of pistol and shotgun, and it definitely changes the offense to a real extent. The good sign here is that Jordan was, in fact, able to take snaps under center at the practice before having the surgery. So that means like he was either just getting through the pain or whatever. My hope is that means he'll be able to do it after. But I think those are the two things. Is when is exactly that outcome of when he comes back, and then is there any limitations with him being able to go under center? Because if so, that definitely changes the offense in a real way.
Yeah, Andy, and I know you're not a doctor or part of the team staff, but I mean, do you think that if this was regular season was coming up here against the Colts in the same time frame on Saturday, that Jordan Love would be playing in this game and the surgery would probably be avoided?
I wonder if they would wait. Here's what I bet would happen. I bet they would wait until after Washington Thursday in the second week of the regular season. He would play through it up until that point. Mm-hmm. As soon as Friday morning hits, he'd have that surgery first thing Friday morning, and then try everything in their power to have him ready for that Browns game the following Sunday, which again would give him that week to kind of heal up. Sure. Would give him like maybe Thursday, Friday before that week of practice, or that game where he could potentially practice, and then go to Cleveland and play in that game. And if you're kind of handpicking a game on the schedule where maybe if like something just, it took a little bit longer where he was going to potentially miss, maybe it would be that Cleveland game where you could feel like you could maybe get by with Malik Willis and still win that game. Outside of that, maybe they wait until the bye week, but my guess is it would have been one of those two options of either let's get it done right now, which is what they did, or again, if it was closer to the season, maybe they just wait until that kind of pseudo bye week after Thursday, or the actual bye week itself, which by the way is week 5. So they definitely could have potentially tried to get him through 4 weeks of it, and then, had the surgery on the bye week as well. So I think those probably were some of the options that they were kind of toying with, and I think they probably made the right decision just to get this thing done with right now.
Yeah, I completely agree. Mine as well. Like you said, preseason, it's a horse apiece, right? If you play, if you don't. I just think that I don't think you regret that, because the offense didn't look all that great during it either. And it showed that it needed at least some sort of wake-up call to maybe get into another gear at training camp as the preseason continues now. But like, no one asked about this after the game to Jordan when it was after the first preseason game. And I know people kind of saw him walking around in a wrap the day before, but it felt like all this just came so fast from Green Bay.
Yeah, he at the end of practice on Monday that was only open to the media, I know Schneidman and Domovsky had caught the wrap on the thumb, and that he was talking to LaFleur and the training staff after practice, kind of flexing the thumb a little bit. But even they were like, yeah, it doesn't seem like there's a whole heck of a lot of concern. And then Goody had a press conference scheduled already. This was not related to Jordan Love getting injured or anything like that. So you go into Goody's presser, and like again, we didn't even really touch base on it yesterday. It seems so innocuous with everything. We didn't even really discuss it, and then you get into Goody's presser, and all of a sudden, oh, by the way, he's having a procedure, and you're like, oh my god, all right. And again, thankfully, not a huge time. Let's hear from the Pro Football Doc here to get his diagnosis on this.
Jordan Love injured his thumb. The final play that he was in the preseason game is now set to have surgery today. The good news is it's his left thumb, non-throwing thumb. It is a ligament tear. He did practice yesterday with a big tape job. The outlook, thankfully, even with surgery, is very, very good. In 2019, from the War Room, we saw Drew Brees injure his right thumb, ligament tear, ulnar collateral ligament tear, and we said surgery. Indeed, that happened, and then we said he would return in 6 weeks. In fact, he only missed 5 games. That was very important on his throwing, gripping hand to be able to spin the ball. That's why he missed 5 games, returned in 6 weeks. Jordan Love, it's preseason. It's a non-throwing hand. He can play with tape and support with a month to go before the regular season. Don't think he misses much time at all. He'll miss practice time, but not game time. He'll be ready well ahead of week 1 to start for the Green Bay Packers, and it should not affect his season very much, if at all. And that's the good news, even with surgery on his thumb.
I didn't take you as a Twitter doctor guy, Andy. I really didn't. I did not take you as a Twitter doctor guy.
Meaning, like listening to what David Chow has to say?
I mean,
or meaning like me diagnosing stuff on Twitter?
No, just listening to Twitter doctors, right? I mean, I have no idea who this guy is, but he has a track record of doing it with a lot of professional athletes, and he's got a big following right now as well, too. But I've never even heard of this guy before. I think I blocked enough Twitter doctors in my day where I never got exposed to David Chow.
Yeah, I think he's probably the biggest one that does any of this stuff. I still am like, where I struggle with stuff is like trying to make diagnoses out of like when you see something happen on the field, and it's like, yeah, you probably need to be there, and there's a reason they do MRIs after all of this stuff and things like that. So again, here's what I will say. I'm willing to take the expertise on anything medical from anyone other than myself in this situation, because again, you know, I can pretend to be a lot of things, Tommy. A doctor is not one of those things. So yeah, when it comes to that, if there's something that at least seems to be educational on the topic, which I know, again, David does a good job on this stuff overall. I think it's worthwhile. But yeah, I think you always have to, especially when there's the initial diagnosis of something that you're just seeing immediately happen on the field. And then you get like underneath it, like 20 of the Twitter doctors that are like, here's what's exactly happening. It's like, all right, let's just chill for a second. But he does a pretty good job.
Did he diagnose anyone else on the Green Bay Packers, Andy? Because it feels like everyone needs a diagnosis today, too, not just Jordan Love.
This is why they pay you the big money, Tommy, for these beautiful transitions. Thank you so much for that. Let's get into the injuries as you're listening to the Pack-A-Day Radio Show live from the 1250 AM and 105.7 FM The Fan, powered by the Potawatomi Sportsbook. All right, so here was the new injuries yesterday. 1, Jordan Love. Number 2, Israel Abanikanda, who is now out with a hamstring injury. We'll see how long-term that is, or if it's not. But he was, trying to get involved in the kick return conversation, and as a backup running back, he now has a hamstring injury. Your players who did not practice: Zane Anderson, Xavier McKinney, Jaden Reed, Dontavian Wicks, Nate Hobbs, Christian Watson, Colin Oliver, and John Williams. There were 2 additional players, Isaiah Dunn and Jalen White, who did not practice, but both of them were waived injured yesterday, so they are no longer on the roster. But going into the practice, they did not practice either. There's actually a little bit of good news, Tommy, on the injury front. Actually, a little bit of good news. There are 4 players that actually returned to team activities, actually doing practice when they were doing the actual team stuff, which is what you want them to do. Rasheed Walker, Marshawn Lloyd, Emmanuel Wilson, and Kamal Haddon all returned to team activities, which was a great sign. Lloyd and Haddon specifically had really nice days. I didn't get a great look at Walker. Wilson had a fumble, but we'll talk about Lloyd potentially here in just a second. Those 4 returned. And then they signed 2 players, Tyrion Davis-Price, who was there at practice yesterday, a running back. And then they claimed yesterday Kawan Baker, a wide receiver off of waivers. He was not at practice yesterday, should be out at practice on Thursday for the joint practices. But then you had 4 additional players that at least at some point went down during practice yesterday. Savion Williams had the massage gun on his right leg throughout the course of practice. Early on, he practiced, then he had the massage gun, and he did not return to practice for about the remaining 60 to 75% of practice that was left. So that was noteworthy. Romeo Doubs had kind of a collision in the end zone, had a hard fall, stayed down for a while, and then eventually was able to get up off of his, on his own power. Talked to the team trainer for a bit. They went to the sideline, then eventually went to the Don Hudson Center, and he did not return. And then he did say in the locker room, also just kind of in passing by to a couple of reporters who tried to get an interview, but he didn't unfortunately have time on that particular day. And he just said, but they asked if he's going to be good, and he said yes. So hopefully that means he is in fact going to be good. Luke Musgrave and LVN on I think the second to last play of practice, or at least right around there was just a mess of humanity on a run play in the middle. And I thought maybe there had been a collision between the two. I don't know exactly for sure, but both Luke Musgrave and LVN were down right around the play. And Musgrave came off, looked like favoring his ankle, and he was not too happy about it. And then LVN kind of walked off to the other side. Both of them walked off on their own power. Hopefully much ado about nothing. Here's the thing. All 4 of these might be completely minor, and they might all 4 of them be back out there on Thursday. But when you see Savion Williams, Romeo Doubs, Luke Musgrave, LVN, kind of go out throughout the course of the day, it's just like, man, and already after Jordan Love had the thumb issue and had surgery in his thumb, it just felt like your pets' heads were falling off throughout the course of the day. And then you look at the wide receiver room, by the time you get done with practice, Christian Watson's on the PUP list. Jaden Reed's got his foot in a boot. Dontavian Wicks is out with a calf injury. Savion Williams is massaging his leg with the massage gun. And Romeo Doubs is in the Don Hudson Center getting checked by a trainer. 5 of your top 6 wide receivers basically are no longer practicing. And Luke Musgrave goes out at the end as well. I mean, that is a ridiculous amount of weapons that are not practicing by the end of practice yesterday. They are clearly going to need to get some of those guys back, specifically against, Indianapolis in this joint practice. Otherwise, it's going to be a lot of Matthew Golden, McCole Hardman, Malik Heath, and some guys that we're not quite as familiar with. I'll just put it that way. So yeah, that's the state of the injury situation. There's some fun stuff. Let's talk about the play of the day first, or player of the day, I should say. Edgerrin Cooper was just on a mission yesterday. He had a pick 6. He skied to tip a pass at the line of scrimmage, tipped it to himself, comes up with the interception, returns it for a touchdown. Beautiful play by him. Blows up a screen pass, has 2 potential sacks, multiple plays where he was in on run defense as well. Just an absolute madman all throughout practice. Your play of the day, Taylor Elgersma to Isaiah Neyor. Get used to the combo, Tommy. Elgersma to Neyor, 2025. No, it was a beautiful play, though. Elgersma goes pretty deep, I would say, probably 30-ish yards out to a deep kind of corner route to Isaiah Neyor. Probably puts a hair too much on it. And Neyor, who's 6'4", by the way, has to completely lay out for the catch and does so, lays out for it, catches it, survives the ground, and comes up with the touchdown. So really nice play by him. I'm just messing with you. Isaiah Neyor's not even a real person on the team. I just wanted to see. I'm just kidding. He actually is a real person on the team. So that was your play of the day. And then kind of the buzzworthy one yesterday, Tommy, was Marshawn Lloyd. And I don't know how to say this without it just coming across as giving him the expectations of the world on his shoulders. I don't know that there's been a player in my 7 years covering the team that there is more buzz about from the media people on the sidelines when he practices than Marshawn Lloyd. Wes Hodkiewicz yesterday, and he tweeted it out too, is I am the most anticipated that he is, to see somebody in preseason since Vince Young was in town. Mike Spofford said the guy is just different, tweeted that out as well. And the amount of people talking about Marshawn Lloyd on the sidelines yesterday was unbelievable. The whole sidelines was a buzz. And the crazy thing is, he had like two nice run, like really nice runs. But we're not talking like a 70-yard scamp or anything like that. He had two plays where he cut back across the grain. One in particular where there's nothing there and he got like 20 yards out of it. They're both really nice runs, but I'm not even talking like it was just A plus. It's just a different running back. Like he's got unbelievable speed, great vision. He just cuts different. He just moves different. And here's the thing. It's not just that he looks really, really good when he's out there. The idea of him as the change of pace to Josh Jacobs, like they are perfect. And I mean ideal, perfect complementary players to one another. It is tantalizing to think how good that those two could be together if he can just stay healthy and get on the field. And to be clear, nobody in the media, myself included, even though I've gone through a couple scouting classes, we're not NFL scouts, right? We don't know exactly how this is going to go. But just passing the eye test, the dude's unbelievable. He looks absolutely fantastic every single time he's out on the practice field. Now it's just, can he actually get out on the game field? And can it translate out to the game field? But man, he looks just so unbelievably awesome.
Did it feel the same way last year?
Yes.
Yeah.
It really did. I mean, it was, I said it last year on numerous occasions. There were multiple days. I mean, multiple days where he looked like the best running back in Green Bay in training camp. Like, Josh Jacobs was there.
Yeah.
Now, I do think there's a little of Josh Jacobs that knows how to, sort of ramp up, if you will, and maybe not be, 1,010% Josh Jacobs in, early training camp and things like that.
He's jogging to first base. Yeah.
Yeah,
I got
exactly.
it.
And again, I wouldn't even go that far, but he's not going full Josh Jacobs in practice. Rightfully so. Everyone knows what that dude's going to be once the lights are on. That's when you get the real Josh Jacobs. But even with that being said, there were multiple days at practice last year where Marshawn Lloyd looked like the best running back, and it like clearly, like it wasn't like a shocking statement if you would have said it to anyone that was there. So now it's just, can he get out there? Can he stay healthy? And it was just great to see him back practicing. And now hopefully we can get that day after day. And then your guy, Brandon McManus, just a casual 6 for 6 again, including 3 kicks over 50 yards. So those are some of the key takeaways from practice yesterday. Of course, everyone's abuzz about Jordan Love. Hopefully, thankfully, sounds like it's going to be something where he's back sooner rather than later. So no need to panic at the moment. All right, Football Talk on the Fan is presented by Paramount Plus. You can't count on much these days, but what you can count on is Sundays with the NFL on CBS and Paramount Plus. Watch your local NFL game every Sunday on CBS and Paramount Plus all season long. Visit ParamountPlus.com/NFL to get started today. Right now in Milwaukee, 70 and cloudy, high of 79, low of 65. There is an alert there's a fever going around, Tommy. It is Brewers fever, so definitely be careful when you're out there in Milwaukee right now. We'll be right back with Jacob Westendorf. This is the Pack-A-Day Radio Show powered by the Potawatomi Sportsbook. Welcome back to the Pack a Day Radio Show, live from the 1250 AM and 105.7 FM The Fan Studios, powered by the Potawatomi Sportsbook. Reminder that the Mason Crosby Show is coming up next from 9 to 11 right here on The Fan with Mitch Thunder Nellis. Joining us right now on the Fan Guest Hotline, powered by Gruber Law, is the one and only Jacob Westendorf. Find him on Packers on SI, Pack a Day Podcast, on social media at Jacob Westendorf. He's everywhere you need him at all times. Jacob, how are you doing, my friend?
I'm doing well. Kind of in my feelings a little bit. My 5, soon to be 6-year-old starts kindergarten tomorrow, so the emotions are high. This is her first day of school tomorrow morning, so less than 24 hours.
Breathe it in, let it sink in, take every single moment that you can. Just take the entire day off tomorrow if you need to. It is definitely one of those things. It's definitely one of those things. When we adopted both of our kids, and when we were going through the process, had visions of the first day of school, first day of kindergarten, having that, your kid with the backpack getting on the bus for the first time and everything like that. And then it actually happens. And then all of a sudden, you got a 6th grader and you're like, what in the heck just happened? So take every second of that in that you can. It's an awesome moment. And you only get so many of those throughout the course of your life, those benchmark moments. So enjoy the heck out of that one, my friend. I know you are not the only person in your feelings right now for different reasons when it comes to the Green Bay Packers. Obviously yesterday, a lot of injury news, including to the quarterback of the team, the franchise guy, Jordan Love, going out with that thumb injury. What was your initial reaction when you heard Brian Gutekunst start spewing out surgery for the number 1 QB there?
I had to pause for a minute just after that and say, like, wait, surgery on what? Because
exactly,
pretty big difference. But thankfully I'd been following along and figured that, with the thumb injury he had the day prior, that's probably what it was, but you still want to hear that for confirmation purposes. But I mean, it's not great. Your starting quarterback is hurt. I heard your discussion about you build your whole practice around the quarterback. The Packers, they build their whole franchise and the whole team around the quarterback. So doing all that, and you can't tell me that the method or part of the method to their madness of playing guys early in the preseason this year was they know who they play week 1. They know who they play 4 days later. They know they play Dallas at the end of the month. Like, this stretch to start in September is a big one. And last year they lost to too many NFC playoff teams. That's why they were the 7th seed instead of a higher one, because they didn't have any of the tiebreakers. Well, those first 3 games could be massive, not just for getting off to a good start, but for those tiebreaker scenarios down the stretch, and 2 of them are home games. So, you need to protect home field for that reason as well. So it's not great. Thankfully, I think you did the math earlier. It sounds like he's only going to miss like 3 or 4 days of practice. So that's not so bad. Stinks that he's going to miss the joint practice against the Colts, just because for entertainment purposes, I love the joint practice stuff, with apologies to Aaron Rodgers. I love them. I think they're awesome. But it's still not where you want to be if they're trying to get off to a fast start and in a rhythm, which, now you're just kind of in a setback, and expectations not a guarantee. Before yesterday, it was a guarantee he would be back, barring something else happening between now and week 1. So not great, but not the end of the world either. And is now where we transition to he's injury prone and not worth his contract and all that good stuff too.
We're apparently so well past that. It's very, very injury prone, and probably just can you get out of that contract now and just go with Malik? No need to bring up that can of worms, to say the least. I still can't we're good. Number 2 that I wanted to follow up with is it's not just Jordan. And I will actually say, just going back to that for a moment, I thought Malik Willis did a great job in practice yesterday, stepping up, taking the reins, just really like he did in the regular season a year ago. And well, there were definitely a couple moments. I thought one-on-ones were a little bit tough yesterday. There were a lot of quarterback misses to wide receivers. I thought in the actual team activities, outside of a pretty Herculean play by Edgerrin Cooper to sky and tip a pass to himself and pick it off and return it for a touchdown. And then at the very end, what would have been a sack by Isaiah Simmons anyway, he just kind of fades off his back foot and throws it up on the very last play, and Evan Williams picks that off. I thought he had a really nice day and multiple really big completions, including to Luke Musgrave, amongst others. So thankfully, from a practice standpoint, it felt like they still got in the things that they needed to get in, and it didn't feel like, oh my God, that was just a wasted practice because Jordan wasn't even there. So kudos to Malik for stepping up. The other thing, though, is that it wasn't just Jordan. The wide receiver room, basically decimated. You have Christian Watson coming back from PUP eventually, and we can talk about that as well. But you had Reed with the boot. You had Wicks out with the calf. Savion Williams out there, like, goes out with, he's massaging his leg with the leg massager. I mean, the entire wide receiver core, and then Dobbs, of course, gets injured in the end zone yesterday, was basically brutalized. And then Musgrave goes out too. They're going to need all of the wide receivers back and Jordan back, hopefully relatively soon, so they can start working on some of the rhythm and timing that was an issue last year in 2024. And I think in large part due to the fact that these guys were not able to practice consistently out on the field.
Yeah, you want to get that runway before they play Detroit so that on, a 3rd and 5 early in the third quarter, when you run a timing pattern, the guy's going to be in the right spot. Love's going to know where he's going to be and he's going to hit him. But I was joking yesterday with Bill as the Packers signed Tyron Davis-Price. I was like, is he going to play receiver too? Just because none of the guys were left. Like, I mean, we talk about, could they keep 7? What about if an 8th guy? I mean, I think I remember we did a discussion during the summer talking about even like some of the back end of the depth chart guys saying, like, could they maybe make a run at a roster spot or a preferred practice squad addition kind of stuff. And now it's like McCole Hardman and Malik Heath are wide receiver 1 and 2, and it's out of necessity because all those guys are down. Again, not the end of the world. It's not great though. Jaden Reed is their back-to-back leading receiver. He's been down for kind of in and out of camp when he has been playing, and then seeing him in a boot, it was just like, that's obviously not a good feeling. Matthew Golden is healthy, but he's a rookie. At some point, you would think there's going to be some growing pains, right? And something that shows up, tangibly on the field as a growing pain. Dobbs, Wicks, all those other guys, I mean, they're kind of here to give him some runway to be able to make those kinds of mistakes. And even if he doesn't, you want more than one guy on the field that's capable of doing that. The Packers last year, again, none of those guys really distanced or established themselves as must-play players. So you want those guys on the field. Those guys want to be on the field to try and establish themselves as those guys. Because, the other reality, you were talking about Watson earlier, him and Dobbs, those guys are playing for contracts. Like, their future is in question at this point. So, Dobbs, I mean, with all due respect to him, if he's got another concussion, Green Bay is just going to say, yeah, I mean, thanks, but no thanks. We're not even going to open discussions on a contract or anything like that, because at this point, we're talking about your overall health and safety. We can't do that. So, you want to get those guys on the field for both the present and getting ready for, those future games. And again, that first 4-game stretch, I think you have a chance to learn a lot about this Packers team and who and what they can be and what they've done from a year ago.
And thankfully, it does not seem to be a concussion for Romeo Dobbs, but we should get a little bit of clarity of that on Thursday as we get ready for joint practices in Indianapolis. We're being joined by Jacob Westendorf, Packers on SI, Pack-A-Day podcast. Find him on social media at Jacob Westendorf. The good news that we did get from Goody yesterday was on Christian Watson and was pretty glowing in how he is running already, basically. And I'm going to paraphrase a lot of this here, but basically saying it's almost difficult to not just want to put him back out at practice already with how great he looks. Said that he will very likely, and they anticipate him starting the season on the PUP list, which will knock him out those first 4 games. But then went on to say, like, it might take a lot to keep him off the field after that 4th game. Remember, the bye week is week 5, so it would be week 6, but game 5 that he could potentially come back for. Man, Jacob, if he is back on that game 5 after that initial 4-game stretch, that is about as good of a possible timeline as you ever could have possibly imagined after a late season ACL and MCL injury. We know that Christian Watson's a freak, but that is some freaky stuff to get back at that point in time if that does end up being the case.
Yeah, I remember talking with you guys after he got hurt against Chicago and just being like, man, 9 months is October, 12 months if he's on the longer side of that. That stretches into, next year. Could he miss the whole season, which would really stink for the Packers? And, Green Bay's offense has been drastically different without Christian Watson on the field. That's just the way that it has gone through his 4-year career. So if you could get him and have Matthew Golden on the field and get some of the guys that they have just kind of ready to play, I mean, having Watson out there makes force multiplier is kind of the word I use for him. He doesn't have to be touching the ball to make everyone else better around him. So the other thing I had heard earlier in the spring was basically like, if you didn't know he was injured, then you would not know that he was injured. That has been an interesting way to look at things. And then you see every video and everything. He's running and cutting. I think he joked the other day that he's still the fastest guy on the team. So if anybody wants to race, he's going to be the one that can beat you. So getting him back, if they can get him back, I remember it was a huge story when Rashawn Gary came back after just 9 months of recovery. Watson would be right in that same time frame. And at a position that requires just as much of that explosion, probably more change of direction and everything like that as well. So getting him back early can only help the offense, because you're hoping that the passing game was bad by the end of last season. There's no other way to shake it. And there's a multitude of reasons for that, but it was bad by the end of the season. And as great as the run game was, there's that great Mike Pettin line from a few years ago. If you're going to get to Miami through the air faster than you can drive. So if you're going to get through the air, you got to be able to make those big plays. Watson's a big play guy for them too.
Yeah, he really is. And I think the excitement of potentially seeing, if everything comes to fruition, of Christian Watson and Matthew Golden on the field at the same time, with the Jaden Reeder, Dontavian Wicks, or Romeo Doubs, whatever it might be, just so many different options for you to attack defenses in different ways with different flavors of wide receiver. It's so enticing. Got to get these guys healthy, including Christian Watson. But man, if you could have those guys all back by your 5th regular season game, and hopefully not suffering any other injuries for anyone in the time being, it does have the potential to be a very fun and potent wide receiver core. All right, as I want to look back for a second, Jacob, because you and I have not had the opportunity to discuss what was a pretty ugly preseason week 1. I know you've had the opportunity to go through some of the film and just kind of review everything. Now that we're a few days away from it and you've had the ability to marinate on some things, how are you feeling about that game, and any negative or positive takeaways that you now have a few days later?
Yeah, the biggest concern coming out of it was Matt LaFleur basically regurgitating the lines that he had from a year ago against Denver. Like, came out flat, made these mistakes, ugly, not prepared, not ready to play. Last year, of course, in Denver was that 27-2 debacle where I think the way LaFleur, I've never seen him so upset or just as upset after a game. It was incredible. He was that way after a preseason game. So that part, not encouraging. The good news for them is they have a chance to kind of correct that this week. And they did do that last year. They struggled against Denver. They played much better the following week against the Ravens. They practiced better, all that good stuff. So they have a chance to do that and kind of redeem themselves this year. But again, this is a team who we've heard similar conversations during the Matt LaFleur era. I remember I talked about this with Jacob Morley on the Pack-A-Day podcast, where Zadarius Smith and Preston Smith were basically saying, like, yeah, we just weren't ready to play against San Francisco for the NFC title. Like, how is that even possible, kind of thing. So not a huge concern, because these are completely different players. It's a completely different team, but it is something I think worth monitoring. On the positive side of things, I think the 2 young offensive tackles acquitted themselves very well. Jordan Morgan, I know his career ended as a tackle on family night because of 2 plays against Lucas Van Ness that everybody saw over and over again. But I thought he played really well. When Brian Gutekunst says he has the footwork of an offensive tackle, that shines through pretty quickly with him. And I think that you can see something like that. Some functional strength stuff. I'm not making the comparison because David Bakhtiari is a Hall of Famer, but David Bakhtiari had some similar issues early in his career, to the point where I remember after his first and second season, we were talking about, does Green Bay pick somebody early to either replace him and move him into guard, or just flat out replace Bakhtiari altogether? And then he becomes a swing tackle for a year or two. Bakhtiari obviously grew into the best left tackle that Aaron Rodgers ever played with, and maybe one of the best offensive linemen in Green Bay history, especially in the modern era. So that's worked out really well. Anthony Belton, his climb to the second, his block on Amar Johnson's touchdown run, that's an offensive lineman's dream. That's one that's going over and over again, and that can have a carryover effect onto other players on the team of, like, I don't want to be the only one who's not putting defensive players on their butt. So I don't know if Belton will fully be able to stick at tackle. Adam Stenavich has been pretty staunch about that. So was John Eric Sullivan when they drafted him. Brian Gutekunst has been as well. I don't know how often he's repped at guard. I tend to think his future is more so as Sean Ryan's replacement at right guard as soon as 2026, with Morgan playing left tackle. But I thought both of those guys played really well against the Jets starters, with Morgan in his case as well. So looking forward to seeing them against Kwity Paye and some of those guys that Indianapolis has next week. And Seattle's got some an interesting front and some goofy stuff that they can see on defense next week with Mike McDonald as well. So how do those guys play against those guys? I think that was a very positive step for a Green Bay team that has, 7 offensive linemen, but as we've learned very quickly, that position can grow very thin very quickly.
Yeah, one of the players who did not have as good of a game, Jacob Monk, potentially that 8th offensive lineman, and you can see the potential fall off going from 7 to 8 right now in Green Bay. Again, we're being joined by Jacob Westendorf, Packers on SI, Pack-A-Day podcast, and of course at Jacob Westendorf on social media. I have a quiz question. You brought up Packers Broncos. They lost 27-2. Jacob Westendorf, if you know this, I'm going to be just like mad credit. Who recorded the safety for the Packers against the Broncos last year in that preseason game?
Oh, man. Corey Ballantyne.
There's 0% chance.
Yeah,
There's
no.
0% chance. Zach Morton. Zach
Oh,
Morton
yeah.
was the man who who came up with it. I have zero recollection of Zach Morton whatsoever. Like usually like the name would be like, oh yeah, he had a cup of coffee on the team. Zero recollection. And he had a safety. And the only points in a preseason game for a Packer. That'll be a great trivia question someday. All right. As we look ahead to preseason week 2, you mentioned some of the disappointment just from the overarching energy, attention to detail, etc. in week 1. What do you want to see change in week 2? And what are just some of the things that you're going to be watching for?
Yeah, that specifically, because these guys now, the starters aren't going to play, and I don't know how much they're going to play. If Jordan Love's not going to play next week, I don't know how much you're going to see Josh Jacobs and guys like that. So these are guys that are fighting for their life in the NFL. They're fighting for a roster spot. So, they should be coming out with their hair on fire, or the Matt LaFleur phrase that he likes to use. I don't know if I could say that on the radio, so I'm not going to, but you know what I mean. Those guys need to be ready to roll immediately, as that game starts in a place where it's a road game. So, how do the Packers? They've struggled on the road, especially in recent years and in environments like that. So, again, this game doesn't count, but how quick do guys like that get up and moving? How quick do they, can they put some points on the board early? Can they play in a balanced kind of game instead of a game where, it's 10-0, 17-3, all that stuff very quickly and easily? Last game wasn't all that competitive all that much throughout it. So that's really what I want to see on that front with those guys, especially as the backups. And then Malik Willis, you mentioned him kind of taking hold of this. And I thought that was something he did a really good job with a year ago, was kind of taking ownership of what his responsibility as the backup quarterback was, and saying like, no, like in the past, you could even hear some of the players when like Rodgers got hurt or something like that. It's like, well, Aaron's down, and they'd give you kind of some of the canned responses or whatever, but you could kind of tell with the energy around the team that like, yeah, we kind of know we're up against it here. Malik Willis was very much like, no, my job is to win. And that's kind of what we're going to do here. So I don't know that he's had through one preseason game. I thought for sure, I think, was it you who predicted they'd go undefeated in the preseason? And
we don't need to bring that up, Jacob Westendorf. I don't recall that whatsoever. Okay. In fact, I almost said verbatim, they're probably going to lose 30-10 in that first preseason game. And that's probably going to be it. Yeah, definitely didn't say they go undefeated.
So if you said that, I think a lot of people though thought that maybe they would do really well. And Malik Willis was a big part of that, because there's conversations we've had, like, where does he rank? Like, in the group chat, I will allow the sanctity of the group chat, Jacob Morley, Ross Uglum, and myself. Somebody asked how many games would the Packers win if Malik Willis was their starter, and the over-under was set at 8.5. Well, how many teams get to set their over-under at 8.5 with their backup quarterback? Not very many. But I'd like to see him play a little bit better. It was difficult, not all because of him, obviously, on Saturday night, but there were some things where it's like, you missed it, you missed something there. There's something that was kind of funky about the operation, and that stuff all kind of falls on the quarterback. And that's kind of the next step in Willis's development with the Packers. Because last year, you mentioned before, the way that they had to game plan with Willis, having to get him ready in like 10 minutes to play against Indianapolis after finding out he had just gotten there. They had to game plan specifically for a lot of stuff, and it was very difficult. And the way that the Packers have glowed about him since then, I don't think people truly understand how difficult it was to get Malik Willis ready to play an NFL football game as quickly as they did. But his next step in the development is now not only, yes, we're still going to do some of the stuff with you that we did a year ago. We're going to game plan around you. We're going to give you some of that quarterback run game stuff and some easy completions and stuff like that. But running the offense, taking command of the offense, can you do things like that? Because Malik Willis also kind of playing for a job in the future. Is he just going to be a long-term backup quarterback potentially in Green Bay? Or if he plays really well in these next 2 preseason games, does he get a chance to start next year? So I'd like to see him kind of, command the offense and get them off to a really good start.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I think Malik Willis is kind of the big one to kind of keep an extra eye on in this preseason game and see how we can actually just operate this offense. Hopefully not have to do a bunch of kind of rubber bumper stuff that is just specifically for Malik Willis, and just go out and execute. And again, I thought he did a really nice job of that at practice yesterday. Should still be a fun one, even if we get a lot of backups in this game. I'm more interested just to see, is that intensity, attention to detail much better than it was in that opening salvo this past week in preseason week 1 against the Jets. Jacob, I cannot thank you enough. Appreciate everything that you do for the Pack-A-Day podcast, as well as covering the Packers so well on Packers on SI and everywhere else. But tell all the people where we can find all of your incredible work.
Yeah, si.com/NFL/Packers. You'll find about 10 Bill Huber stories before you get to mine. I don't know when that guy sleeps. So
he doesn't.
Bill no, I don't think so. Runs strictly on coffee and whatever the press box service food that day is. But no, he's been great to me, so I appreciate all of that stuff. And then getting ready to hang out with you guys here in about 3 weeks, I think, is Packers Lions. So yeah, you can check out some stuff there. The Pack a Day podcast. I'm every Tuesday with Jacob Morley, and then all over the place whenever they ask me to do anything. The answer is pretty much always yes. So trying to figure all that out.
You're the absolute best. Cannot thank you enough. We will definitely be doing this a variety of different times throughout the course of the season. Maybe even one more time before. We'll take a look and see if we can get you back here in the near future. But thanks for all you do, and we'll talk to you again very soon, Jacob.
Thanks, Andy.
All right. Thanks again for joining us on the Fan Guest Hotline powered by Gruber Law. One call. That's all. Make sure to follow him at Jacob Westendorf. This is the Pack a Day Radio Show. We got a lot more right after this.
I've seen some stuff already today. Jordan Love is injury prone. No, he plays football. He's a football player. Football players get hurt. The injury rate in the NFL is 100%. And look, last year, does anyone remember Jordan Love coming back too early by his own admission and Matt's admission? Probably should have sat for a few more weeks. The guy wants to play. The guy wants to be out there for you, for Packers fans. And then he gets hurt and, he's injury prone. Man, you guys, you don't know. You don't get it. What these guys go through, what they put their bodies through, what they fight through to get back out on the field to try to perform for your favorite team. And I know most of this is falling on, this is a preaching to the choir thing. I know most of you are rational and understand this, but the injury prone thing drives me nuts. You know who else was injury prone at the start of their starting career in Green Bay? Aaron Rodgers. Go back and look it up. Everybody talked about, oh, he's injury prone. It's like, no, he's playing football.
10 out of 10, Aaron Nagler. 100 out of 100. No notes. That is Aaron Nagler of Cheesehead TV. Welcome back to the Pack-A-Day Radio Show. A huge thank you to Jacob Westendorf for joining us this past segment. Also a reminder that the Mason Crosby Show with Mitch Thunder Nellis is coming up next from 9 to 11. And the Pack-A-Day Radio Show is also now a podcast. You can find us anytime on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your favorite podcasts. Catch the full episode, listen by individual hour, or jump straight to the highlights. Open your favorite podcast app, search Pack-A-Day Radio Show, hit the follow button so you get every minute of the show your way and on your time. And of course, make sure to check out the actual Pack-A-Day podcast when you are out there as well. That is Aaron Nagler talking about Jordan Love and this idea that there could potentially be anything that's injury prone, anything like that. Listen, sometimes in a very rare instance, if over and over and over you're having the hamstring, the groin pull, whatever it might be, where you're consistently getting soft tissue injuries and there's something clearly amiss. Even in that scenario, I'm not usually willing to go all the way to he's quote unquote injury prone, anything like that. Football is an incredibly violent sport. When you're getting situations like your thumb getting jammed by a helmet, that's not injury prone. That's bad luck. It just happens. It's going to happen in the course of the NFL. Do we want Jordan to train his thumb so that every time it jams into a helmet, nothing's going to happen to it? I don't know what you want him to do in that situation. Romeo Doubs yesterday, the training staff. The training staff needs to do a better job with these wide receivers. What is the strength and conditioning staff? Do you want him to learn how to land on his back better, or strengthen his back in that situation so that when it lands really hard, it doesn't get these things, guys. Going back to what Aaron said here, the injury rate is just about 100%. We are going to have these same discussions every single year. At this point in training camp next year, there's going to be another 10 to 12 guys that are out injured. It might be some of your favorites. It might be somebody you've never heard about, but there will be 10 to 12 guys that are on the injury report at this time next year. If you go team by team, there are about 10 to 12 guys. And Justin Jefferson has not been practicing in Minnesota. At least I know he's been out injured as of late. I don't know what his current status is, but I know he's missed a bunch of time lately. This is all throughout the NFL. You know what other talking point there's going to be? Guess what? There's going to be a couple more contract situations next year, like there was with Jair Alexander, like there was some conversation with Elton Jenkins. There's just some conversations that at this point in 2025, we've got to be used to. And having players that are hurt and having some contract situations here or there are just part of the DNA and fabric of the NFL. And everyone's going to have to get used to that at some point in time. And the Green Bay Packers, for the most part, have done a really good job, especially if you want to look at injuries over the past couple seasons. With the new strength and conditioning staff this past year, if you want to credit or take away from that, last year that was really, really good for the most. It was a little bit disappointing. And, when you had a couple of the offensive linemen go down in the playoff game itself. But up until that point, you could not have asked for a whole heck of a lot more throughout the course of the season. Obviously, if Jordan could have stayed healthy throughout, but the amount of time that he missed overall, considering the injuries that he had, was pretty impressive, actually. And to Aaron's point as well, these guys are getting out there doing everything that they can to play. I'm going to hit the audio in post. That was my Potawatomi Sportsbook final thought of the day today, Tommy. So hit that music.
You got to do some smart thinking.
It's time for Andy Herman's final thought of the day.
What are you thinking?
Powered by the Potawatomi Sportsbook.
What the hell were you thinking?
You're listening to the Pack-A-Day Radio Show on 1250 AM and 105.7 FM The Fan.
That is my final take of the day. But Tommy, I know that you have got the leadoff show coming up today, and we'd be remiss not to spend a couple seconds here, at least on everyone's favorite team, the Milwaukee Brewers.
Over the last 66 games, Milwaukee is 50-16.
Seems low.
Over the last 30 games, Milwaukee is 26-4.
That seems right.
Over the last 15 games, Milwaukee is 14-1. Over the last 11 games, Milwaukee is 11-0. Andy, we are on Burger Watch. Officially, it is not Burger Warning. You do not count your chickens or your burgers before they grill, I would say. And today,
I've said that many a time.
Today it is who else would you rather have going for your free burgers other than the most tenured Brewer pitcher, the man who took 2 years to come back from an injury that has ended careers, who has come back and been phenomenal, will be a playoff game starter for the Milwaukee Brewers, Mr. Brandon Woodruff. After a game in which Paul Skeens started the day before and your offense put up 14 runs, this is the day. This is the day Milwaukee has been waiting for, Mr. Herman.
We were, my son and I were listening to the game in the car ride home from his soccer practice yesterday, and it was 6-0. And like they had obviously scored a good chunk of runs like right before this. And the commercial came on. We were about 5 minutes from home, and the commercials came on for in between innings. And I just turned off the radio because I'm like, by the time we get home, the game will be the game will just be coming on by the time we get home, basically. And he's like, when we get the game back on, he's like, what do you think the score will be by then? I'm like, oh, it'll probably be like 6-0. Now it took us a couple minutes to get in the house and like get everything unpacked and everything. We turned on the TV and it's 12-0. Yeah. And he's like, told you. He's like, I told you it was going to be more runs. And I'm like, yeah, I should have expected it, quite frankly.
Last thing. The Chicago Cubs have the second best run differential in all of Major League Baseball at plus 113. Milwaukee is leading Major League Baseball plus 152 right now on the season after the 14-run win yesterday, Andy. After starting minus 40 to start the year. Yeah.
Imagine if you just nuke those, 4 games to start the season.
I mean, just remember, Elvin Rodriguez started the home opener this season. Just remember that.
Everyone knows that. Yes. I mean, of course.
Yes.
I just want it for the record. Here's your job as producer, Tommy. I want you to go back and listen to every episode and say how many times during that crappy streak that I'm like, the Brewers are going to be fine. They're going to be fine. They're going to be fine over and over and over and over. I did not expect this. I will very much say that. I don't think anyone saw this coming, but they have been far more than fine and are on an absolute tear. And what a unbelievable team to watch day in and day out. Let's get one more today and complete that streak up to 12. And not complete it, but keep it going up to 12. Tommy, thank you so much for everything today. Appreciate you as always. Looking forward to that leadoff show later today. Mason Crosby, Mitch Nellis coming up 9 to 11 right here on The Fan. Pack-A-Day Podcast 365, wherever you get your favorite podcast. Don't miss it every single day. Back tomorrow with Mark Oldacres. Excited to catch back up with him. This has been the Pack-A-Day Radio Show. Enjoy your Wednesday. And of course, go Pack Go.